The fluorescent lights hummed above Nia Brooks as she scanned groceries at Register 2, $47 in her bank account until Friday. When a well-dressed stranger reached for his wallet and found nothing, other customers turned hostile. Nia made a split-second decision, swiping her own card for $18 she desperately needed for rent, bills, and her brother's tuition. The store fell silent. The stranger studied her face like he was solving a puzzle, thanking her with words heavier than simple gratitude. What Nia didn't know was that she hadn't just helped a random customer. She'd unknowingly passed a test set by a man with power, grief, and a mission to prove that character still mattered in a world that had forgotten how to care. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today, and if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed. The fluorescent lights hummed their familiar tune above Nia Brooks as she scanned another box of cereal across the register. It was 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, and her feet already ached from standing since 6 that morning. She clocked in early to cover for Janet, who'd called in sick again, which meant Nia would be here until closing at 10. Another 16-hour day in a week that had been full of them. That'll be $42.75, Nia said with a smile that had become automatic over the past 3 years working at Henderson's Market. The customer, a regular named Mrs. Patterson, fumbled through her coupon organizer while Nia waited patiently. "You're always so sweet, dear," Mrs. Patterson said, finally producing a wrinkled discount slip. "Not like that grumpy fellow at Register 4. Nia simply nodded and processed the coupon, reducing the total by $3. She handed over the receipt and helped bag the groceries, even though bagging wasn't technically part of her register duties anymore. It was just who she was. As Mrs. Patterson shuffled away with her cart, Nia allowed herself a brief moment to stretch her shoulders. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, but she already knew what it was. Another reminder about the electric bill. Another notification about Malik's tuition payment coming due. Another weight pressing down on shoulders that were already carrying too much. "Nia, you got a second?" Tyler approached from the produce section, his green apron stained with what looked like berry juice. He'd been working at Henderson's for about 8 months now, always friendly, always offering to swap shifts when she needed it. "What's up?" Nia asked, grateful for the brief distraction as the line at her register temporarily cleared. "I noticed you took a double again. I can cover your evening rush if you need to head out early." Tyler's brown eyes showed genuine concern, not pity. That was the difference with him. "I'm good, but thanks," Nia replied. She couldn't afford to lose the hours, not with Malik's deadline looming in 2 weeks. Their mother's medical bills from last year had wiped out what little savings the family had managed to build. Now it was just Nia, working doubles and picking up every available shift, trying to keep her 20-year-old brother in school. He was so close to finishing his degree. Just 1 more year. "Customer at Register 2, the intercom crackled. Mrs. Delgado's voice, crisp and professional as always. Nia turned to see a short line forming. An elderly man with a single bag of cat food. A young mother with a toddler and a cart full of baby supplies. And behind them, someone who immediately stood out. He was a white man in his late 50s, dressed in clothes that whispered money rather than shouted it. A tailored navy blazer over a simple white shirt. Expensive leather shoes that had been broken in just enough to look comfortable rather than new. His salt and pepper hair was neatly trimmed, and he wore a watch that Nia recognized from a magazine Malik had left lying around. The kind that cost more than she made in 6 months. But it wasn't his appearance that caught her attention. It was the way he moved through the store. He wasn't in a hurry like most customers. He walked slowly, observing everything. The displays. The other shoppers. The employees restocking shelves. Like he was looking for something specific, but couldn't quite put his finger on what it was. Nia processed the elderly man's cat food and helped the young mother with her groceries, making silly faces at the toddler that earned her a giggle. Then the well-dressed stranger stepped forward, placing his items on the belt. A loaf of whole wheat bread, 2 cans of chicken noodle soup, a small bag of apples, a container of orange juice. Basic items. Nothing that matched the obvious wealth suggested by everything else about him. "Good afternoon." Nia greeted him with the same warm smile she gave everyone. "Afternoon," he replied. His voice was calm, measured. He watched her scan each item with an attention that felt unusual but not uncomfortable. The total came to $18.43. Nia announced it and waited while the man reached for his back pocket, then his other pocket, then his jacket pockets. His expression shifted from casual to confused to embarrassed. "I apologize," he said quietly. "I seem to have left my wallet at home." Nia had seen this before, though usually with customers who looked far less put together. "Do you have a phone payment set up? Apple Pay or something like that?" The man checked his phone and shook his head. I don't have that configured. I'm sorry, I'll just have to come back. Behind him, the line had grown. 7 people now, and Nia could feel their impatience radiating forward like heat from an oven. Are you serious right now? A voice cut through the murmur of the waiting customers. Nia looked past the stranger to see a middle-aged woman in yoga pants and a designer jacket. You come into a store and waste everyone's time because you forgot your wallet? The stranger turned slightly, his expression remaining composed. I understand the inconvenience. I'll step aside. Sure you will, the woman continued, louder now. Let me guess, you'll come back with some story about how you're too important to remember basic things like bringing money to a grocery store. Ma'am, please, Nia interjected gently. It happens sometimes. We can just void the transaction and move on. But the woman wasn't finished. People like this, they think they can just snap their fingers and problems go away. Meanwhile, the rest of us have to wait in line like normal human beings. A man further back muttered something about rich people acting entitled. The energy in the line shifted from impatient to hostile. Nia saw the stranger's jaw tighten just slightly, the only crack in his composed exterior. In that moment, Nia made a series of rapid calculations. The total was $18.43. She had $47 in her checking account until Friday. She planned to buy pasta, sauce, and some chicken breasts on her way home. Nothing fancy, just enough to last until payday. If she covered this stranger's groceries, she'd have about $29 left. It would be tight, really tight, but she'd managed on less before. More than the math, though, something else pushed her toward a decision she knew was probably foolish. She remembered being 14 and watching her mother count coins at the pharmacy counter, tears in her eyes because she was $3 short for her prescription. A stranger had stepped forward that day. An older black woman in a church hat who paid the difference without saying a word, just a gentle pat on her mother's shoulder. Nia reached into her apron pocket where she kept her own wallet during shifts. Wait, she said quietly. I've got it. The stranger turned back to her, confusion crossing his features. Excuse me, I'll cover it. Nia pulled out her debit card before she could change her mind. It's not a problem. You don't have to do that. The stranger's voice carried genuine surprise, not the relieved acceptance she might have expected. I know I don't have to. Nia swiped her card through the reader. But it's $18. It's okay. The store seemed to fall silent. Even the woman who'd been complaining stood quiet, her mouth slightly open. The soft beep of the card reader accepting the transaction echoed in the sudden stillness. Nia handed the stranger his receipt and began bagging his groceries. Her hands moved automatically, placing the bread on top so it wouldn't get crushed, the soup cans at the bottom of the bag for stability. The stranger accepted the bag slowly, his eyes studying her face like he was trying to solve a complicated equation. What's your name? Nia, she replied simply. Nia. He repeated it carefully, as if committing it to memory. You didn't have to do that, but I won't forget it. Thank you. There was something in his tone that made the words feel heavier than a simple thank you. Not gratitude exactly, but something more thoughtful, more deliberate. He walked toward the exit, pausing once to glance back at her before disappearing through the automatic doors. That was really kind of you, the young mother from earlier said, now at the coffee shop area near the entrance. She'd apparently witnessed the whole thing. Nia shrugged and turned to the next customer, trying to ignore the tight feeling in her chest that came from knowing she'd just made her already difficult week considerably harder. Mrs. Delgado appeared at her elbow about 20 minutes later during a brief lull. Nia, can I see you for a minute? They step away from the register, near the customer service desk, where they could speak privately. Mrs. Delgado was in her mid-40s, a woman who'd worked her way up from cashier to supervisor over 15 years. She was strict about store policies, but had always been fair with Nia. I saw what you did, Mrs. Delgado said, her voice low. That was a good thing. But I have to tell you, be careful about setting precedents. People talk, and you don't want every customer who forgets their wallet expecting the same treatment. Understand, Nia replied. It won't become a habit. Mrs. Delgado's expression softened. I know you're struggling right now, with your brother's school and everything. If you need extra shifts, you let me know first, okay? Don't run yourself into the ground. I appreciate it, Mrs. Delgado. Really. As her supervisor walked away, Nia returned to her register. The rest of her shift blurred together in the familiar rhythm of scanning, bagging, and smiling. But her mind kept drifting back to those $18.43, to the look on the stranger's face, to the weight of the decision she'd made. She thought about the math again during her dinner break, which consisted of vending machine crackers and water from the fountain because she needed to save money wherever she could now. Malik's tuition payment was due in 12 days. She'd been planning to scrape together just enough by working these double shifts and maybe picking up a weekend delivery gig. Now that margin had gotten thinner, her phone buzzed. A text from Malik. "How's your day going? You working late again?" She typed back. "Yeah, but it's fine. Focus on your studying. I got that physics exam tomorrow. Wish me luck." "You don't need luck. You've got this." She stared at the message thread for a long moment. Malik was so close to graduating. He'd worked so hard, maintained a 3.7 GPA while juggling part-time work at the campus library. Their mother had dreamed of seeing him walk across that stage to get his diploma. She'd spent her last coherent weeks making Nia promise to make sure he finished school, no matter what. Nia wasn't about to let $18 break that promise, no matter how tight things got. The next morning brought Nia back through Henderson's automatic doors at 5:45, 15 minutes early for another double shift. The story of the cashier who paid for a stranger's groceries had already made its rounds through the staff. "I heard what you did yesterday," Carmen said from behind the deli counter, arranging fresh sandwich meats. "That was really sweet of you." "Just help someone out," Nia replied, tying on her apron. No big deal. But the attention kept coming. Mrs. Patterson made a point of choosing Nia's register, even though others stood empty, leaning in close to say she'd heard about it from another customer at her book club. Two other regulars nodded approvingly as they passed through her line. Even Janet, the coworker Nia had covered for, stopped by to say thank you and mentioned hearing about the generous gesture. By lunch, Tyler appeared with a wrapped sandwich from the deli. "Turkey and Swiss on wheat," he said, setting it beside her register during a lull. "Carmen said it's your favorite." "You didn't have to do that," Nia protested, though her stomach had been growling for the past hour. "I know I didn't have to." Tyler's smile was gentle. "But good people deserve good things. Besides, I noticed you've been skipping real lunches lately. Vending machine crackers aren't exactly fuel for a double shift." The kindness hit her harder than she expected. Nia turned away quickly, busying herself with straightening the candy display so he wouldn't see the emotion welling in her eyes. Such a small gesture, but it mattered. God, it mattered. What none of them knew was the real cost of her choice. That morning's email check had brought another rent reminder. Now, just 4 days from due. The electric company had sent a final notice, and Malik had texted asking if she could send grocery money because he was running low and payday at the library wasn't until next week. She'd responded with a casual "of course," then spent 20 minutes recalculating which bills could wait and which absolutely couldn't. The math kept getting tighter, the margins thinner. Her checking account currently held $48.57. She had 3 more days until payday, and rent alone was $800. Around 2 in the afternoon, movement outside caught her attention. A sleek black sedan had pulled into the fire lane, hazard lights blinking. Through the tinted windows, she could make out 2 figures in conversation. One of them gestured toward the store, and Nia's breath caught when she recognized the set of his shoulders. The stranger from yesterday. He was talking animatedly with whoever sat in the driver's seat, pointing back at Henderson's Market like it was the subject of their discussion. The conversation lasted several minutes, both men nodding, the stranger making notes on his phone. Then he stepped out of the vehicle, standing there in his tailored clothes, hands in his pockets, studying the building like an architect examining a blueprint. "Nia, customers waiting." Mrs. Delgado's voice brought her back. She turned to find 3 people in line, all watching her curiously. Heat crept up her neck as she realized she'd been caught staring. She focused on her work, scanning groceries and making small talk, but her mind kept drifting to that sedan and what the conversation might have meant. The afternoon shift brought an unexpected pattern. Customers began specifically choosing her register, even when others had shorter lines. Some mentioned hearing about what she'd done. A few thanked her for being a good person. One elderly man paid for his items and then handed her a $10 bill across the counter. "This is for you," he said, "for showing kindness in a world that needs more of it." "I can't accept tips," Nia replied automatically, following the store policy Mrs. Delgado had drilled into every employee. "Then don't think of it as a tip. Use it for whatever you need. Buy yourself a coffee. Get something nice for dinner." He pressed the bill in her palm, his weathered hand warm. Sometimes we all need a little help. The money sat heavy in her pocket for the rest of her shift. Policy said she shouldn't keep it. Conscience said she desperately needed it. $10 could buy eggs, rice, and beans. It could cover the late fee on her electric bill. It could mean one less thing to worry about in a week full of worries. But not everyone approaching her register had pure intentions. Around 6:30, a guy in his mid-20s rolled up with a cart overflowing with energy drinks, frozen pizzas, bags of chips, and premium ice cream. He looked well-fed, well-dressed, and thoroughly unconcerned about anyone but himself. 6714, Nia announced after scanning everything. The guy made a show of patting his pockets, his movements theatrical and obvious. Oh man, you know what? I totally forgot my wallet in my car. But hey, I heard you're cool about helping people out with that kind of thing. Nia recognized the manipulation immediately. The entitled smirk, the expectant tone. This wasn't someone in genuine need. This was someone trying to exploit kindness. I'm sorry, but I can't help you today, she said calmly. You're welcome to get your wallet from your car, or you can come back another time. His smirk vanished. Seriously? I thought you were supposed to be all nice and helpful. I'm nice, Nia replied, her voice steady. But that doesn't mean I'm a bank. Have a good evening. The guy muttered something under his breath about false advertising and stormed off, abandoning his full cart right there at the register. Tyler appeared moments later, already grabbing items to return to their shelves. Some people have nerve, he said, shaking his head. It's okay. I expected this would happen. But the incident left a sour taste in her mouth. By the time 8 o'clock rolled around, Nia had been approached by 2 more customers with suspiciously convenient memory problems. Word had spread beyond just the store. Someone had posted about the incident on a local Facebook group, and it was getting shared around the neighborhood. You're famous, Carmen joked during a break, showing Nia the post on her phone. The screen showed a photo someone had taken without her knowledge, Nia handing the stranger his bag of groceries. The caption read, "This amazing cashier at Henderson's paid for a customer's groceries when he forgot his wallet. We need more people like her in the world." Below it, dozens of comments praised her generosity. A few criticized her for being naive. Several people tagged friends, spreading the story further. Nia's stomach twisted looking at it. I didn't know someone was taking pictures, she said quietly. It's a nice story, Carmen replied. People love this kind of thing. Nia handed back the phone, feeling exposed in a way she couldn't quite articulate. She'd helped someone because it felt right, not because she wanted attention. Now strangers were discussing her choices, debating her motivations, turning a private moment into public entertainment. Her shift ended at 10. She drove home through quiet streets, her old Honda making the concerning clicking noise that meant something expensive was probably about to break. Just another worry for the pile. Her phone rang as she pulled into her apartment complex. Malik's name lit up the screen. Hey, she answered, grabbing her bag from the passenger seat. Sis, I just wanted to say thanks for agreeing to send that grocery money. You sure you're okay on funds? I'm Fina. How was your physics exam? Pretty sure I aced it. Excitement bubbled through his voice. Dr. Morrison said my approach to the thermodynamics problem was really creative. And hey, there's this research assistant position opening up next semester. If I get it, it comes with a small stipend. Could help out with expenses. That's amazing, Malik. You should definitely apply. I will. But listen, his tone shifted, becoming more serious. I've been thinking, maybe I should take a semester off, get a full-time job somewhere, help you with bills. This is too much for one person to carry. Absolutely not. Nia's response came swift and firm as she unlocked her apartment door. You're staying in school. We're almost there. 1 more year. But you're killing yourself with these double shifts. Mom wouldn't want that either. Mom wanted you to graduate. That's what matters. Nia dropped her bag on the small kitchen table. Besides, you're doing great. Keep focused on school. I've got this handled. They talked for a few more minutes, Malik updating her on his classes and friends, the normal rhythms of college life. Nia listened, letting his enthusiasm wash over her like a reminder of why she kept pushing through the exhaustion and stress. After hanging up, she sat in the quiet of her apartment and let herself feel everything she'd been holding back all day. The ache in her feet from standing for 16 hours. The gnawing anxiety about bills she couldn't quite afford. The bone-deep weariness that came from running on empty for months. She pulled out her phone and checked her account balance. The $10 from the elderly man had been deposited, bringing her total to $58.57 until Friday's paycheck. Nia opened her calculator app and started doing the familiar math. Rent was due in 4 days. $800. Her paycheck on Friday would be roughly $900 after taxes, assuming no surprise deductions. That left $100 for everything else. Electric bill, phone bill, gas for her car, groceries. The delivery gig money might cover some gaps if she could pick up enough runs over the weekend. It would be tight. It was always tight, but she'd make it work because she always did. The next morning brought more attention. A woman recognized Nia from the Facebook post and asked to take a selfie together. Nia politely declined, feeling her skin prickle with discomfort. Another customer loudly announced to everyone nearby that Nia was that generous cashier from the internet. Mrs. Delgado pulled her aside during lunch break, concern etched across her features. Corporate called this morning, the supervisor said quietly. They heard about what happened. They want to feature you in some customer service excellence campaign they're planning. I'd rather they didn't, Nia replied immediately. I figured you'd say that. Mrs. Delgado's expression softened. I told them you prefer to keep things low-key. But Nia, you need to know this attention isn't dying down. People are talking. Just be prepared for more of what you've been dealing with. I understand. And remember what I said about boundaries. The supervisor squeezed her shoulder gently. Not everyone who comes through that line deserves your sacrifice. You're a good person, but don't let people take advantage of that goodness. Around 3 in the afternoon, the stranger returned. This time he wore jeans and a plain button-down shirt, looking more casual but no less put together. He carried a hand basket instead of a cart, moving through the aisles with that same observant quality. But now, when he thought no one was looking, Nia caught him watching her. Not in a threatening way. More like someone studying a painting in a museum, trying to understand what made it meaningful. He selected modest items again. A gallon of milk, a loaf of bread, a newspaper, some bananas. When he approached her register, he carried his wallet prominently in his hand, making sure she could see it. Hello again, he said, his voice carrying that same measured calm. Hi, Nia replied, scanning his items. Got your wallet today, I see. A slight smile touched his lips. Edo, thank you again for yesterday. I meant what I said about not forgetting it. It was just $18, Nia said, bagging his groceries with practiced efficiency. Maybe, he studied her face with that same evaluating expression. But it was $18 you didn't have to spare. That makes it worth considerably more than the amount. Nia's hands paused mid-reach for the milk. She looked up, surprised that he'd somehow understood the weight of what that money meant to her. Their eyes met, and she saw something there beyond simple gratitude. Assessment, curiosity, purpose. How did you know I couldn't spare it? She asked quietly. I didn't know for certain, but I recognized something in how you made the decision. There was weight to it. Thought. He pulled out exact change from his wallet. People with plenty of money to spare don't hesitate the way you did. You calculated. You weighed the cost, and you still chose kindness. The observation felt too perceptive, too knowing. Nia handed over his receipt, unsettled in a way she couldn't quite name. Well, you're paid up now, she said, trying to lighten the moment. So we're even. Are we? He accepted his bag of groceries, but something in his tone suggested he disagreed with that assessment. Thank you, Nia. I hope the rest of your week goes well. He walked toward the exit, and Nia watched him go, that same strange feeling settling in her chest. The sense that their interaction wasn't finished. That somehow, in ways she couldn't predict, paying for those groceries had set something in motion. Tyler appeared at her side moments after the stranger left. That was him again, wasn't it? The wallet guy. Yeah, Nia confirmed, still staring at the exit. Weird that he came back. And did you notice he was watching you earlier? I saw him from the stockroom, just standing by the cereal aisle, looking over here. Maybe he's just curious, Nia suggested, though she didn't believe it herself. What she didn't see was the stranger sitting in his car afterward, making detailed notes on his phone, or the way he nodded to himself, as if confirming some private theory, or the phone call he made to someone, his words careful and considered. Character still matters, even when no one's watching. She proved that, twice now. As Nia's shift wound toward closing time, she thought about the past 2 days. One small act of kindness had created ripples she never could have predicted. Attention she didn't want. Manipulation she'd had to reject. Recognition that made her uncomfortable. And underneath it all, a growing sense that the well-dressed stranger who'd forgotten his wallet hadn't been quite as helpless as he'd appeared. But why would someone test her like that? And what happened next? The rest of the week brought Nia no relief in the growing attention or her mounting financial worries. Friday arrived with its promised paycheck, but the numbers in her bank account still told a grim story. After paying rent, she had $112 left for everything else until the next payday in 2 weeks. She sat at her tiny kitchen table Friday night, bills spread out in front of her like playing cards in a losing hand. Electric bill with the late fee, $73. Phone bill, $65. That would leave her negative $26, and she hadn't even factored in gas for her car or groceries. The clicking noise in her Honda had gotten worse too, a metallic sound that made her wince every time she accelerated. Her phone buzzed. A text from Malik. Got the research assistant position. Stipend starts next semester. Finally going to be able to help out. Nia smiled despite her stress. She typed back. That's amazing. So proud of you. She stared at the bills again, then made a decision she'd been avoiding. The electric bill would have to wait another week. She'd pay the phone bill to keep that line active, use what was left for gas, and the cheapest groceries she could find. Rice, beans, eggs. The same meal she'd been rotating for months now. The weekend brought more double shifts at Henderson's, but it also brought something unexpected. Saturday morning, Mrs. Delgado called an emergency staff meeting before the store opened. "Listen up, everyone," the supervisor said, her expression tense. "I got a call from corporate yesterday afternoon. There's going to be some changes coming to our store chain. Big changes." Murmurs rippled through the assembled employees. Nia stood near the back with Tyler, whose usual easy smile had vanished. "What kind of changes?" Carmen asked from the front. "They didn't give me all the details," Mrs. Delgado replied. "But there's talk of an investment group looking to acquire the company. They'll be conducting evaluations at various stores over the next few weeks. I wanted you all to hear it from me first rather than through the rumor mill. Does that mean layoffs?" Janet's voice trembled slightly. "I don't know," Mrs. Delgado admitted, and her honesty made the admission even more frightening. "But I need everyone to keep doing their jobs the way you always have. Show them we run a tight ship here. Show them we're worth keeping." The meeting dispersed with a heavy atmosphere. Nia returned to her register, but her mind churned with new worries. If the store got bought out and they cut staff, she'd lose her income. She'd lose everything she'd been fighting so hard to maintain. Tyler appeared beside her during a slow moment mid-morning. "You okay? You look stressed." "Just thinking about what Mrs. Delgado said." "Yeah, it's pretty scary." He adjusted his apron, avoiding her eyes. "But hey, if anyone's job is safe, it's yours. You're the best cashier we have. Plus, with all that social media attention, you're basically famous now." Nia didn't feel comforted by that observation. The Facebook post about her paying for the stranger's groceries had been shared over 300 times now. People she'd never met were commenting on her life, making assumptions about her character, turning her into some kind of symbol. It made her skin crawl. Around noon, a familiar black sedan pulled into the parking lot. Nia's stomach tightened as she watched Charles step out, this time accompanied by two other people in business attire. They stood by the car for several minutes, Charles pointing at different aspects of the building while the others took notes. He was evaluating the store. The realization hit Nia like cold water. He wasn't just some random wealthy customer who'd forgotten his wallet. He was part of the investment group Mrs. Delgado had mentioned. The whole forgotten wallet incident had been a test. But a test for what? And why her specifically? The three of them entered the store, and Nia forced herself to focus on her current customer, an older man buying sandwich supplies. She scanned his items mechanically, hyper-aware of Charles and his associates moving through the aisles with clipboards and tablets. "That'll be $12.47, she said, bagging the man's groceries. "You're that girl from the internet, aren't you?" the man asked, studying her face. "The one who paid for someone's food? I just helped someone out," Nia replied quietly, wishing people would stop recognizing her. "Well, it was a good thing you did. World needs more kindness." He paid and left, and Nia looked up to find Charles standing 3 customers back at her line. Their eyes met across the distance. He nodded slightly, a gesture that could have meant anything. Acknowledgement, approval, warning. Nia couldn't tell. She processed the next 2 customers with her heart beating faster than normal. Then Charles stepped forward, alone this time. His associates had disappeared somewhere else in the store. "Hello, Nia," he said, his tone as measured as always. "Mr. Whitmore," she replied, using the name she'd overheard one of his associates say in the parking lot. Surprise flickered across his face. "You know my name? I pay attention." Nia met his gaze steadily. "You're part of the investor group, aren't you? The one looking to buy the store chain." Charles studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I am. Does that bother you?" The forgotten wallet was a test. "It was an observation," he corrected gently. "I wanted to see how people behaved when they thought no one important was watching. You'd be surprised how rarely kindness appears in those moments." Nia's hands tightened on the edge of her register. "So you manipulated me, made me spend money I couldn't afford to spend, just to see what I'd do." "I didn't make you do anything," Charles replied, his voice calm but firm. "You made a choice that told me more about your character than any interview or resume ever could." "And what exactly did it tell you?" "That you understand what leadership really means. Not power or profit, but responsibility. Taking care of people even when it costs you something." You place a newspaper and a bottle of water on the belt. That's rare, Nia, especially in someone so young. Nia scanned his items in silence, processing both the groceries and his words. She wanted to be angry at him for the manipulation, for the test she hadn't known she was taking. But underneath the anger was something else. Curiosity. in a strange sense that this conversation mattered in ways she didn't fully understand yet. Total's $3.75, she said. Charles paid with exact change. The evaluations will continue over the next week. I wanted you to know that directly rather than letting you worry. He picked up his items. And Nia? The choice you made that day mattered. It still matters. He walked away before she could respond, leaving her standing there with a dozen questions and no answers. The afternoon brought a new crisis that put everything else temporarily out of mind. A young woman approached Nia's register with a crying baby and a cart full of diapers, formula, and baby food. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. Her clothes rumpled like she'd been wearing them for days. "I'm so sorry," the woman said as Nia began scanning items. "I know this is going to sound terrible, but I'm about $12 short. Is there any way you could remove some items? Maybe the extra pack of diapers." Nia looked at the baby, then at the woman's desperate expression. She remembered what Mrs. Delgado had warned her about setting precedents. She remembered the guy who tried to exploit her kindness earlier in the week. But she also saw genuine need in front of her. "Actually," Nia said slowly, "let me see what I can do." She pulled out her employee discount card, which she rarely used because it only worked once per shift and she usually saved it for her own groceries. She scanned it, reducing the total by 15%. The woman's total dropped from $68 to $57.80. Still more than she had, but closer. "That helps," the woman said, tears welling in her eyes. "Thank you. I can remove the baby food jars. Those are the most expensive and—" "Wait," Nia interrupted. She looked at the register, then made a decision. She pulled up the coupon database and started searching. There was a manufacturer's coupon for the formula, another for the diapers, digital coupons that anyone could use, but most people didn't know existed. She applied them one by one. The total dropped to $52.30, then to $49.95. "How much do you have?" Nia asked quietly. $46, the woman whispered. Nia looked at the baby items, then removed the smallest pack of baby wipes. The total dropped to $45.73. She could work with that. She manually applied a store credit of $1 that every employee could authorize once per month for damaged items or customer complaints. The total became $44.73. "There," Nia said. $44.73. Will that work?" The woman stared at the register display, then at Nia, tears now flowing freely. "How did you didn't have to. Baby needs to eat," Nia said simply. "And you need to take care of yourself too. There are coupons in the system. You just have to know where to look." The woman paid, collected her bags, and hugged Nia across the register despite store policy about physical contact. "Thank you," she sobbed. "You have no idea how much this means." As she walked away, Nia caught movement from the corner of her eye. Charles stood near the magazine rack, partially hidden behind a display. He'd witnessed the entire interaction. Their eyes met again, and this time his expression was unreadable. He nodded once, then turned and left the store. Tyler appeared moments later, having watched from the customer service desk. "That was brilliant," he said quietly. "The way you used the system instead of just paying for it yourself. You helped her without sacrificing what you need." "I learned from my mistakes," Nia replied, but she felt shaken. Not just from helping the young mother, but from the growing certainty that Charles had been testing her again. And this time, she'd shown him something different. Not just kindness, but resourcefulness. The question was, why did he care? Sunday brought Malik to visit. He arrived at her apartment around 2 in the afternoon, carrying takeout containers from the cheap Chinese place near campus. "I know you've been eating nothing but rice and eggs," he said, setting the food on her kitchen table. "So I brought actual protein and vegetables." They ate together, Malik talking about his classes and the research position, while Nia listened and tried not to think about her overdue electric bill. But her brother knew her too well. "You're stressed about money again," he said, setting down his chopsticks. "I can see it in your face." "I'm fine, Nia lid." "No, you're not. And I've been thinking." "Don't," Nia interrupted. "Don't tell me you're going to quit school." "I wasn't going to say that." Malik leaned back in his chair. "But Nia, this can't keep going the way it's going. You're working yourself to death. What happens when your car finally breaks down for real? What happens if you get sick and can't work? I'll figure it out. I always do. That's not a plan. That's just hoping nothing goes wrong." Her brother's voice carried frustration and concern in equal measure. "I know Mom made you promise to get me through school, but she also wouldn't want you destroying yourself to do it." Nia felt tears prick at her eyes, but refused to let them fall. "One more year. That's all we need. One more year, and you'll have your degree, and everything we've sacrificed will be worth it." Malik was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached across the table and took her hand. "Okay, one more year. But promise me something. What? Promise me you'll ask for help if you need it. Promise me you won't just suffer in silence because you think you have to do everything alone. Nia squeezed his hand. I promise. But even as she said it, she knew asking for help had never been easy for her. Pride, maybe, or fear that if she admitted how bad things were, everything would fall apart. Monday morning brought the corporate inspection Mrs. Delgado had warned about. 3 executives arrived in expensive suits, clipboards in hand, expressions neutral and evaluating. They walked through the store with Mrs. Delgado trailing behind, answering questions and pointing out various operational details. Nia watched from her register, noting how the supervisor's shoulders tensed with every question, how her smile became tighter as the inspection continued. This wasn't just about the store's future. It was about Mrs. Delgado's job, her livelihood, her 15 years of loyalty and hard work. Around 10 in the morning, one of the executives approached Nia's register with a basket of random items. He was white, probably in his 50s, with silver hair and the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about money. Good morning. Nia greeted him professionally. Morning. He placed his items on the belt. You Nia Brooks, correct? Her stomach dropped. Yes, sir. I'm Robert Harrison, Chief Operations Officer for the acquisition team. He watched her scan his items with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. I've heard interesting things about you. Just doing my job, sir, Nia replied carefully. Paying for customers' groceries is part of your job description? The question carried an edge that wasn't quite accusatory, but wasn't friendly either. No, sir. That was a personal choice. A choice that's generated quite a bit of social media attention for this store location. He pulled out his wallet. Some of my colleagues think that kind of publicity is valuable. Others think it sets a problematic precedent. What do you think? Nia met his eyes steadily. I think I saw someone who needed help, and I helped them. The attention was never the point, but it happened anyway. And now every customer who comes through this store knows about you. Some probably hoping for similar treatment. He paid for his items. How do you handle that pressure? By remembering why I did it in the first place, Nia said, and by setting boundaries when people try to take advantage. Harrison studied her for another moment, then nodded. Thank you, Ms. Brooks. That'll be all. He walked away, and Nia felt like she'd just taken another test she hadn't known was coming. Tyler appeared beside her minutes later. What did he want? Tyler asked, concern creasing his forehead. To ask me about the grocery incident. Did it seem good or bad? I honestly can't tell. The executive spent another 2 hours in the store, examining inventory systems, questioning employees, reviewing financial records with Mrs. Delgado in the back office. When they finally left, the supervisor emerged looking pale and shaken. She gathered the staff for another brief meeting during the afternoon lull. They'll be making their recommendations to the investors by the end of the week, Mrs. Delgado said, her voice tight. After that, we'll know what happens to us. In the meantime, keep working. Keep being the excellent employees you've always been. Nobody spoke. The worry hung thick in the air like humidity before storm. That evening, as Nia was preparing to clock out, Mrs. Delgado pulled her aside near the employee break room. I need to talk to you about something, the supervisor said quietly. The executives made some comments during the inspection. About you specifically. Nia's heart sank. Bad comments. Mixed. Mrs. Delgado crossed her arms. Harrison thinks you're a liability. Says the grocery incident shows poor judgment and could encourage other employees to make unauthorized financial decisions. But there was another investor who observed you today. He disagreed with Harrison's assessment. Charles Whitmore, Nia said. Mrs. Delgado nodded. You know him? He's the one whose groceries I paid for. The supervisor's eyes widened. You're kidding. I wish I was. Nia leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. What did he say? That you demonstrated exactly the kind of employee leadership they should be cultivating, not eliminating. That resourcefulness and compassion aren't weaknesses in customer service, they're strengths. Mrs. Delgado paused. He also said something strange. He said you reminded him why he got into this business in the first place. Nia didn't know what to say to that. Listen to me, Nia. The supervisor's voice became firm. I don't know what's going to happen with this acquisition, but I do know you've got someone powerful in your corner. Use that wisely. After her shift, Nia sat in her car in the parking lot for a long time, processing everything. Charles had defended her to the other investors. He positioned her actions as leadership rather than foolishness. But why? What did he gain from supporting her? Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello. Ms. Brooks, this is Charles Whitmore. His voice was calm, professional. I apologize for calling outside of work hours, but I wanted to speak with you directly. What did you get my number? From the employee directory, Mrs. Delgado provided. I hope you don't mind. He paused. I wanted you to know that the board will be making decisions about the Henderson's market chain this week. There's some disagreement about the direction we should take. Mr. Harrison thinks I'm a liability, Nia said flatly. Mr. Harrison thinks efficiency and profit margins are the only metrics that matter. I disagree. There was steel in Charles's voice now. I believe treating employees with dignity and investing in their growth creates better long-term outcomes, both for the company and for the communities we serve. Why are you telling me this? Because what happens this week will affect your life and the lives of your coworkers. You deserve to understand what's at stake. He was quiet for a moment. And because the decision you made in that checkout line wasn't just about $18. It was about character, about leadership, about proving that some things still matter even when no one's watching. Someone was watching, though, Nia said. You were. Yes, I was. And I'm grateful for what I saw. His tone softened slightly. The real reason I came to Henderson's that day wasn't finished yet, Nia, but it will be soon. I wanted you to be prepared. Prepared for what? For change. The kind that might feel uncomfortable at first, but could lead somewhere better. He paused again. Get some rest. This week is going to be important. He hung up before she could ask anything else, leaving Nia sitting in her dark car with more questions than ever and a growing sense that her life was about to shift in ways she couldn't predict or control. Wednesday morning arrived with heavy clouds and the promise of rain. Nia drove to Henderson's Market with her car's clicking noise now accompanied by a grinding sound that made her wince. She checked her bank account that morning. $53 left until Friday. The electric company had called twice. She'd have to pay them this week or risk disconnection. The store felt different when she walked in. There was a tension in the air, a sense of waiting. Several employees clustered near the break room, whispering. Carmen caught Nia's eye and mouthed their back, while jerking her head toward the office. The executives had returned. Nia clocked in and took her position at Register 2, trying to focus on the normal rhythm of work. But every few minutes, she'd glance toward the back where Mrs. Delgado had disappeared with the corporate visitors. Tyler worked nearby, restocking shelves but clearly distracted. Around 9:30, the office door opened. Mrs. Delgado emerged first, her expression carefully neutral. Behind her came Robert Harrison and two other executives Nia recognized from earlier in the week. And behind them, Charles Whitmore. He was dressed differently today, still professional, but there was something more authoritative about his bearing. He walked slightly ahead of the others as they moved through the store, and Nia realized with a start that he wasn't just part of the acquisition team. He was leading it. Attention, Henderson's Market employees. Mrs. Delgado's voice came over the intercom. Please gather in the break room for a mandatory staff meeting. All registers close for the next 30 minutes. Nia's heart hammered as she locked her register and joined the stream of employees heading to the back. The break room wasn't large enough for everyone, so people clustered in the hallway too, pressed together, anxious faces turned toward where Mrs. Delgado stood with the executives. Charles stepped forward, and the murmuring died. Good morning, everyone. My name is Charles Whitmore, and I'm the majority stakeholder in the Whitmore Investment Group. We've been evaluating the Henderson's Market chain over the past several months, and I want to share with you the decisions we've reached. The silence was absolute. Nia could hear her own heartbeat. As of this morning, Whitmore Investment Group has completed acquisition of all 37 Henderson's Market locations across the tri-state area. This location, like all others, will undergo some changes over the coming months. But I want to be very clear about what those changes will and will not include. He paused, his eyes sweeping across the assembled employees. There will be no mass layoffs. No one in this room will lose their job as a result of this acquisition. A collective exhale rippled through the crowd. However, there will be restructuring. We'll be investing in employee training programs, updating equipment, and implementing new policies focused on both customer service and employee well-being. Robert Harrison shifted uncomfortably beside him, clearly not entirely pleased with this announcement. I know change can be frightening, Charles continued, but I want you to understand our philosophy. We believe that companies succeed when they invest in their people, when they treat employees with dignity and create environments where both customers and workers feel valued. His eyes found Nia in the crowd. The contact was brief but deliberate. Over the past few weeks, I've been observing this location specifically, watching how you interact with customers, how you support each other, how you handle difficult situations. He gestured toward Mrs. Delgado. Your supervisor has built a strong team here. That's worth preserving and strengthening, not dismantling for short-term profit. After the meeting dispersed, Nia returned to her register in a daze. No laughs. Investment in employees. It sounded almost too good to be true, especially given Harrison's obvious disapproval. But Charles had said it directly, in front of everyone. The morning progressed with a strange energy. Customers noticed something was different, though they couldn't quite identify what. The employees moved with a mixture of relief and uncertainty, grateful to still have jobs, but worried about what restructuring might actually mean. Around noon, Mrs. Delgado approached Nia's register during a lull. "Mr. Whitmore wants to speak with you privately," she said quietly. "In my office. I'll cover your register." Nia's stomach flipped. "Did I do something wrong?" "I don't think so. But he specifically asked for you." Mrs. Delgado's expression was impossible to read. "Go on. Don't keep him waiting." The walk to the supervisor's office felt longer than it should have. Nia knocked on the door frame, and Charles looked up from where he sat reviewing documents at Mrs. Delgado's desk. "Nia, come in. Close the door, please." She did, then stood awkwardly by the door. Charles gestured to the chair across from him. "Seat. This isn't a reprimand." His tone was gentler than it had been during the staff meeting. "I wanted to thank you personally." "Thank me? For what?" "For reminding me why this matters." He set down his pen. "I've been in business for 32 years, Nia. Built companies, sold companies, made more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. But somewhere along the way, I forgot the human element. I forgot that behind every transaction, every profit margin, every quarterly report, there are people just trying to make ends meet." He leaned back in the chair, his expression thoughtful. "My wife, Elizabeth, she used to say that character is what you do when you think no one important is watching. She believed that deeply." His voice caught slightly on his wife's name. "She passed away 2 years ago, collapsed in a grocery store very much like this one. Several people walked right past her, assumed she was drunk or homeless. It took 4 minutes before someone finally called for help." Nia's breath caught. "I'm so sorry." A store employee eventually helped her. A young man, probably not much older than your brother. He stayed with her, held her hand, made sure she wasn't alone. By the time the ambulance arrived, it was too late to save her, but he gave her something precious in those final moments. Dignity. Compassion. Charles met Nia's eyes. "I've spent the last 2 years trying to understand how we build a society where people can watch someone die and just keep walking. And I realized it starts with how we treat each other in the small moments. In the everyday interactions that seem insignificant but actually define who we are." "The forgotten wallet," Nia said softly. "That was you testing whether people still care. I've done it at all 37 locations over the past year. Walked in, selected modest groceries, pretended I had no way to pay. Do you know how many employees offer to help?" He held up 3 fingers. 3, including you. Most just apologized and sent me away. A few seemed annoyed. One accused me of trying to scam the store. He pulled a folder from his briefcase and opened it. But you didn't just help. You sacrificed money you genuinely couldn't afford to spare. And when I came back to observe you further, I saw you help that young mother without sacrificing yourself. You found a better solution. You showed resourcefulness along with compassion." He slid the folder across the desk. "That's leadership, Nia. Real leadership." Nia opened the folder and stared at the contents. It was some kind of training program description. Management development. Leadership courses. Her name was already filled in on the registration forms. "I don't understand," she whispered. "The restructuring I mentioned isn't about cutting costs. It's about investing in people who demonstrate the qualities we need more of in this world. Kindness, integrity, resourcefulness. You have all 3. Charles's expression was serious. "I'm offering you the opportunity to train for management. You continue working your current shifts while taking courses we pay for. After 6 months, assuming you complete the program successfully, you'll be promoted to assistant supervisor with a significant pay increase." Nia's hands trembled as she held the folder. "Why me?" "Because you prove yourself when you thought no one was watching. Because you show me that good people still exist and they're worth investing in." He stood. "This isn't charity, Nia. This is recognition. You've earned this opportunity. The question is whether you'll take it." She thought about Malik's tuition, her overdue electric bill, the grinding noise in her car, the constant weight of never having enough. And underneath all of that, a tiny spark of hope she'd almost forgotten how to feel. "Can I think about it?" she asked. "Of course. Take until the end of the week." Charles walked toward the door, then paused. "But Nia, don't let pride or fear stop you from accepting something you've genuinely earned. This isn't a handout. This is an investment in someone who's already proven their worth." After he left, Nia sat in the office for a long time, staring at the folder. Leadership training, management track, a way out of the constant financial struggle. But accepting it meant accepting that Charles had been evaluating her, testing her, manipulating circumstances to see how she'd respond. It meant accepting that her act of kindness had been observed and measured, even if the opportunity it created was real. Tyler was waiting when she emerged from the office, concern written across his face. "Everything okay? You were in there a while." "Yeah, I'm." Nia paused, unsure how to explain. "He offered me a management training position." Tyler's eyes widened. "Seriously? Nia, that's amazing. Is it?" She looked down at the folder in her hands. "He manipulated the whole situation. The forgotten wallet was a test. He's been evaluating me this entire time." "So what?" Tyler's voice carried conviction she didn't feel. "So he tested you, and you passed. You showed him who you really are. That's not manipulation, Nia. That's you being excellent and finally getting recognized for it." She wanted to believe him, wanted to accept the opportunity without the complicated feelings about how it came to be. But something still nagged at her. "He said the real reason he came here isn't finished yet," Nia murmured, more to herself than to Tyler. What did he mean by that? The answer would have to wait. Mrs. Delgado needed her back at the register, and the afternoon rush was beginning. But as Nia returned to her familiar position, scanning groceries and greeting customers, she couldn't shake the feeling that despite Charles's revelations, there was still something important he hadn't told her. Something bigger than management training or corporate philosophy. Something that would change everything yet again. The folder sat in her locker, waiting for her decision. And somewhere in the corporate offices, Charles Whitmore was making plans that reached far beyond one struggling cashier at one suburban grocery store. But for now, Nia had customers to serve and bills to pay and a brother, depending on her, to keep pushing forward. Whatever came next would have to wait until she was ready to face it. The only question was, would she ever really be ready? Thursday morning brought Nia back to Henderson's Market with a training folder still sitting unopened in her bag. She'd spent most of the night staring at it, reading through the course descriptions, calculating what a promotion to assistant supervisor might mean for her finances. The pay increase alone would solve most of her immediate problems. She could pay off her overdue bills, fix her car, help Malik without constantly struggling. But something held her back from saying yes. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the uncomfortable feeling that came from knowing Charles had orchestrated everything from the beginning. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe she just didn't believe she deserved it. "You look tired," Tyler said when she arrived at a register. He was arranging shopping baskets near the entrance, but he'd clearly been watching for her. "Didn't sleep much," Nia admitted. "Still thinking about the training thing?" "Yeah." She tied on her apron and logged into her register. "It just feels weird, you know? Like I'm being rewarded for something that wasn't supposed to be a performance." Tyler set down the basket he was holding and walked over. "Can I tell you what I think?" "Sure. I think you're looking at it backwards." His voice was gentle but firm. "You didn't help that guy because you wanted something from him. You helped because that's who you are. The fact that someone noticed and wants to invest in that quality, that's not manipulation. That's just good business sense." Before Nia could respond, Mrs. Delgado's voice came over the intercom. "Nia Brooks to the office, please." Her stomach dropped. Tyler gave her an encouraging nod as she walked toward the back, wondering what this summons meant. When she reached the office, she found not just Mrs. Delgado, but Charles as well, standing by the window with his hands in his pockets. "Close the door," Mrs. Delgado said quietly. Nia did, her heart pounding. "Mr. Whitmore wanted to speak with you before you made your decision about the training program," the supervisor continued. "I'll give you both some privacy." She slipped out, leaving Nia alone with Charles. "I'm not here to pressure you," Charles said immediately. "I want to be clear about that. Whatever you decide, your job is secure. But I wanted to share something that might help you understand why this matters to me." He pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. A woman with kind eyes and graying hair, smiling at the camera. Elizabeth, Nia realized. "She worked in retail for 20 years before we got married," Charles said softly. "Started as a cashier, worked her way up to district manager. She used to tell me that the frontline employees were the heart of any business. That if you took care of them, they'd take care of everything else." He put the phone away. "After she died, I realized I'd spent decades building companies without actually understanding what she meant. I'd focused on profits, on efficiency, on metrics that looked good on paper but ignored the human cost." His voice carried genuine emotion. "The Forgotten Wallet test wasn't just about finding kind people, Nia. It was about proving to myself that Elizabeth was right. That character still exists in the world, and that it's worth building a company around." "Only 3 people helped," Nia said quietly. "Only 3 out of 37 locations." Charles nodded. "Do you know what that tells me? That kindness is rare. That people who genuinely care, who sacrifice for strangers, who see beyond their own immediate needs are precious. And when you find people like that, you don't let them waste their potential standing behind a register their whole life. You invest in them. You give them the tools to lead others. Nia's throat felt tight. What if I'm not ready? What if I fail? Then you fail. Charles's answer was simple and honest. But you'll fail while trying to grow, which is better than succeeding at staying exactly where you are when you're capable of so much more. He moved toward the door, then paused. I'm leaving the decision with you. But I want you to know something. The real reason I came to Henderson's that day isn't just about finding leaders for my company. It's about proving that a business can succeed by doing things differently, by treating people with dignity, by investing in character instead of just skills. He met her eyes. You're not just accepting a training position, Nia. You're helping me prove that Elizabeth's philosophy can work in the real world. That's what I meant when I said it wasn't finished yet. After he left, Nia sat alone in the office for several minutes. The weight of what he'd said settled over her like a blanket. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about proving something larger, about showing that kindness and business success didn't have to be opposites. She thought about her mother, who'd worked 3 jobs to support them and never complained. About Malik, grinding through college while watching his sister sacrifice everything. About all the times she'd felt invisible, overlooked, like her hard work would never lead anywhere. Nia pulled out her phone and texted Charles's number, which Mrs. Delgado had given her. I accept the training position. Thank you for believing in me. His response came within seconds. You earned it. Training starts Monday. We'll adjust your schedule to accommodate the courses. When Nia returned to her register, she felt lighter somehow. Tyler caught her eye and raised his eyebrows questioningly. She nodded, and his face broke into a genuine smile. The rest of Thursday passed in a blur of normal work, but Friday brought complications nobody expected. Around 10 in the morning, Nia noticed unusual activity near the store's administrative area. Ray's voices carried from Mrs. Delgado's office. Through the window, she could see the supervisor gesturing emphatically while Robert Harrison stood with his arms crossed, his expression stern. Tyler drifted over during a lull. Something's going on with corporate. I heard Harrison telling someone on the phone that certain decisions were fiscally irresponsible. He's talking about the no layoffs policy, Nia guessed. Probably. And probably about the training programs, too. Tyler glanced toward the office. I hope Mrs. Delgado's okay. She's been stressed all week. An hour later, the supervisor emerged looking pale and shaken. She caught Nia's eye and gave a slight shake of her head, a gesture that said, not now. But her distress was obvious to everyone who knew her. By lunch, word had spread through the staff that Harrison and other executives were pushing back against Charles's people-first approach. They wanted to implement cost-cutting measures despite the promises made earlier in the week. The mood in the store shifted from relief to anxiety as employees realized the acquisition might not be as positive as they'd hoped. Nia was on her break when her phone rang. Malik's name appeared on the screen. Hey, what's up? She answered. Sis, I have some news. His voice carried an unusual tension. The research position, the one with the stipend. Yeah, they're having budget issues. The stipend might not happen until next year. The disappointment in his voice was crushing. I am sorry. I know you were counting on that to help with expenses. Nia closed her eyes, fighting back the frustration. Of course. Just when things seem to be looking up, another setback. It's okay. We'll figure it out. Maybe I should look for another part-time job. Or, no, non terapti fermly. You focus on school. The training position comes with a small pay increase even before the promotion. We'll be fine. But after hanging up, she sat in her car and let herself feel the weight of it all. The electric company had threatened disconnection again. Her car's grinding noise had gotten worse, and a mechanic had quoted her $800 for the repair. And now Malik's stipend was delayed indefinitely. The training position would help, but it wouldn't solve everything immediately. She was still treading water, just in slightly shallower depths. When she returned inside, Mrs. Delgado was waiting near the break room. Nia, do you have a minute? They stepped into the empty room, and the supervisor closed the door. I need to be honest with you about something, Mrs. Delgado said, her voice low. Harrison and several other board members are fighting Charles's restructuring plan. They think it's too expensive, too idealistic. They want to implement traditional cost-cutting measures. Layoffs, Nia said flatly. Layoffs, reduced benefits, elimination of training programs. Mrs. Delgado's jaw tightened. They're specifically targeting your program as an example of wasteful spending. Harrison's been arguing that promoting a cashier with no management experience is poor business practice. Nia felt her stomach drop. So the training might not happen. Charles is fighting for it. For you specifically. But he's facing significant opposition from his own board. The supervisor met her eyes. I wanted you to know because you deserve to understand the situation. Don't make any financial decisions based on that promotion until we know it's secure. The rest of Friday felt surreal. Nia went through the motions of work while her mind churned with worry. She'd allowed herself to hope, and now that hope was crumbling before she'd even started the training. Saturday brought another unexpected visitor. Nia was restocking candy at a register when a well-dressed black woman in her 40s approached, carrying a notebook and wearing a professional smile. Excuse me, are you Nia Brooks? Yes. I'm Denise Washington from Channel 7 News. We'd love to do a story about you. The cashier who paid for a stranger's groceries, and how that act of kindness is changing your life. Nia's blood ran cold. I'm not interested in an interview. It would just be a few minutes. Human interest piece about good people doing good things. Our viewers love these stories and... No, thank you. Nia's voice was firm. I appreciate the interest, but I'd rather keep my life private. The reporter looked disappointed, but nodded. Understand. If you change your mind, here's my card. After she left, Tyler appeared looking concerned. Media attention? Apparently the Facebook post caught a news station's eye. Nia slipped the card into her pocket without looking at it. I just want to do my job and live my life. Is that too much to ask? In today's world? Apparently yes. Tyler leaned against the counter. For what it's worth, I think you're handling all of this with a lot of grace. Sunday should have been Nia's day off, but she picked up an extra shift to help with bills. Around noon, Charles arrived unannounced, dressed casually but carrying the unmistakable energy of someone with important business to discuss. He approached her register during a quiet moment. I'm sorry to bother you at work, but I wanted to give you an update personally rather than letting you hear it through the grapevine. Nia braced herself. About the training program? The board is voting tomorrow on the restructuring plan. Harrison and his allies have the votes to block several initiatives, possibly including the leadership development program. His expression was carefully neutral, but she could see the frustration underneath. I'm doing everything I can to protect it, but I won't lie to you. The outcome is uncertain. So, I might not get the training after all, Nia said, trying to keep the disappointment from her voice. You'll get it one way or another, Charles replied with unexpected intensity. If the board blocks the formal program, I'll fund your training personally. You'll still get the education and the promotion. It might just take a different path than I originally planned. Why? The question burst out before Nia could stop it. Why do you care so much about one cashier getting promoted? Charles was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of genuine conviction. Because if I can't make this work for you, someone who genuinely deserves the opportunity, then everything I've been trying to prove about running a business differently is just empty philosophy. You're not just one cashier, Nia. You're the test case for whether character and competence can triumph over traditional metrics and bottom-line thinking. He paid for his items and left, and Nia stood there processing what he'd said. She wasn't just accepting a job opportunity. She was becoming a symbol in a much larger corporate battle about values and business practices. The pressure of that realization was almost overwhelming. Monday arrived with the tension of waiting for a verdict. Nia went through her shift mechanically, scanning groceries and making small talk with customers while her mind was elsewhere. The board meeting was happening somewhere in a corporate office, and the outcome would determine whether her life changed for the better or stayed exactly as difficult as it had always been. Tyler kept finding excuses to check on her. Carmen brought her coffee without being asked. Even Mrs. Delgado seemed distracted, glancing at her phone repeatedly as if waiting for news. Around 2 in the afternoon, Charles walked into the store with Robert Harrison and another executive Nia didn't recognize. The three men moved with the careful formality of people who'd just finished a difficult meeting. Harrison's expression was tight with barely contained anger. They disappeared into Mrs. Delgado's office, and the door closed. That doesn't look good, Tyler murmured, restocking shelves near Nia's register. 10 minutes later, Mrs. Delgado emerged and called for another staff meeting. This time, the energy was different. People moved slowly, reluctantly, afraid of what they were about to hear. Charles stood at the front of the break room, his expression carefully composed. Harrison stood beside him, arms crossed, radiating disapproval. I want to thank you all for your patience during this transition period, Charles began. The board has made several decisions about the restructuring plan, and I want to share those with you directly. He paused, and Nia's heart hammered in her chest. The leadership development program will proceed as planned. Nia Brooks will begin her management training next week, along with 3 other employees from different store locations. A collective exhale rippled through the room. Harrison's jaw clenched visibly. However, the board has mandated certain cost-saving measures that will affect all locations. Here it comes, someone whispered behind Nia. Starting next month, employee benefits will be restructured. Healthcare coverage will remain, but certain optional benefits will be eliminated. Paid time off will be reduced by 3 days annually, and annual raises will be merit-based rather than automatic. The mood in the room shifted. These weren't catastrophic cuts, but they were cuts nonetheless. The promise of employee-first policies felt diminished. I fought against these measures, Charles said, his voice harder now. But as Mr. Harrison correctly pointed out, compromise is necessary when multiple stakeholders have different priorities. I wanted you to hear that from me directly. After the meeting, employees dispersed with mixed feelings. Relief that the training program survived. Disappointment that other promises had been walked back. And underneath it all, the unsettling realization that corporate politics would always complicate even the best intentions. Mrs. Delgado pulled Nia aside as the crowd thinned. Your program survived because Charles threatened to resign if the board blocked it. Harrison backed down rather than risk losing him entirely. The supervisor's voice was quiet. That man just spent significant political capital on you. Don't forget that. The rest of Monday passed in a fog. Nia tried to feel grateful that the training program had survived, but the victory felt incomplete. Other employees would suffer reduced benefits because resources were being redirected to leadership development. She was benefiting while her co-workers lost ground. Tuesday brought an unexpected and devastating development. Nia was processing a customer's groceries when her phone buzzed with an urgent text from Tyler. Check Facebook. Now. She waited until her break, then pulled up the social media site with growing dread. The post that appeared at the top of her feed made her stomach turn. It was a screenshot of internal company documents. Training program budgets. Nia's name prominently featured with salary projections and promotion timelines. And below it, a caption from an anonymous source claiming that Nia had manipulated the situation from the beginning, that she deliberately targeted a wealthy customer, staged the generous act, and used social media attention to secure a promotion she didn't deserve. The post had been shared hundreds of times. Comments ranged from supportive to viciously accusatory. People who'd never met her were debating her character, her motives, her worthiness. Nia's hand shook as she scrolled through the comments. Someone had leaked confidential information and weaponized it against her. But who? And why? She found Mrs. Delgado in the office, staring at her computer screen with a grim expression. You've seen it, the supervisor said without looking up. Who did this? Nia's voice came out smaller than she intended. We don't know yet, but corporate security is investigating. Mrs. Delgado finally met her eyes. Nia, I need you to understand something. This is a deliberate attack. Someone wants to undermine the leadership program by destroying your credibility. Harrison, Nia whispered. We can't prove it. But yes, that's the leading theory. The supervisor's expression hardened. He's been opposed to Charles's approach from the beginning. This is his way of fighting back. Nia felt nauseous. What do I do? Nothing. You do absolutely nothing. Mrs. Delgado's voice was firm. Don't respond to comments. Don't defend yourself publicly. Don't give them any ammunition. Charles is handling this at the corporate level. But doing nothing felt impossible when customers started treating her differently. Some were supportive, going out of their way to tell her they believed in her. Others were cold, suspicious, treating her like a scam artist who'd gamed the system. By Wednesday, the situation had escalated further. A blogger had picked up the story, writing a think piece about performance kindness and how social media had corrupted genuine acts of generosity. The article specifically mentioned Nia, questioning whether she'd known Charles's identity all along. Tyler found her crying in the break room during lunch. Hey, no, he said firmly, sitting beside her. You can't let them do this to you. They're right, though, Nia said through tears. Maybe I did benefit from helping him. Maybe I don't deserve the promotion. Stop it. Tyler's voice cut through her spiral. You helped someone who needed help. You didn't know who he was. You sacrificed money you couldn't afford. That's not performance. That's character. He grabbed her shoulders gently. The people attacking you? They're mad because your kindness made them feel guilty about their own selfishness. Don't let their insecurity become your shame. His words helped, but the damage was spreading. By Thursday, several co-workers were treating Nia differently. Not hostile exactly, but distant, cautious, like she was tainted by controversy. Carmen was one of the few who stayed firmly in Nia's corner. People are jealous, she said bluntly. You're getting ahead and they're not. That's all this is. But Janet, the coworker Nia had covered shifts for, made a pointed comment about some people getting special treatment that stung worse than any online attack. Thursday afternoon brought Charles back to the store, his expression thunderous. He requested a private meeting with Nia in Mrs. Delgado's office. We found the leak, he said without preamble. One of Harrison's assistants accessed your personnel file and the training program documents. She's been terminated, and Harrison is facing an internal ethics investigation. Nia should have felt vindicated, but she just felt tired. Does it matter? The damage is done. People think I'm a fraud. People think what Harrison wanted them to think. But the truth will come out. Charles pulled out his tablet and showed her a prepared statement. We're releasing this tomorrow. It explains the full context of the leadership program, includes statements from all 3 other participants, and makes clear that you were selected based on observed performance, not social media attention. Will that actually help? Nia asked skeptically. It might. It might not. Charles's honesty was refreshing even if it wasn't comforting. But you need to know something, Nia. This attack on you is really an attack on me. On everything I'm trying to build. Harrison can't challenge my leadership directly, so he's trying to discredit the philosophy behind it by destroying you. That's not fair, Nia said quietly. No, it's not. But it's reality. He leaned forward. The question is whether you're strong enough to withstand it. Because if you quit now, if you let this drive you away, Harrison wins. The message becomes that kindness is naive, that character doesn't matter, that traditional corporate ruthlessness is the only viable path. Nia thought about her mother, who'd faced discrimination and hardship, but never quit. About Malik, grinding through obstacles without giving up. About all the times she'd wanted to walk away from difficulty, but hadn't because the people depending on her deserved better. I'm not quitting, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. But I need you to understand something too. I didn't ask for any of this. I just wanted to help someone and do my job. If staying means becoming some corporate symbol in a battle I never chose, then I need to know it's actually worth it. It is, Charles replied without hesitation. Not just for you, but for every employee who's ever been told their character doesn't matter as much as their productivity metrics. For every person who's been overlooked because they don't fit traditional leadership profiles. His expression softened. Elizabeth used to say that change only happens when someone's brave enough to be the first. You didn't ask to be first, but here you are. The question is whether you're brave enough to see it through. Friday brought the company's official statement, which was picked up by local media and started shifting public perception, but also brought something Nia hadn't expected. A letter, hand-delivered to the store, addressed to her. Inside was a handwritten note on expensive stationery. Dear Nia, my name is Marcus Henderson. I'm the young man who helped Charles's wife, Elizabeth, during her final moments 2 years ago. He recently told me about you and what you've been facing. I wanted you to know that I understand the weight of being someone's symbol of hope. It's not easy, and it's not always fair, but it matters. Elizabeth told me, right before she died, that kindness is the only currency that never loses value. She made me promise never to forget that. I think she'd want you to know it too. Stay strong. What you're doing matters more than you realize. Sincerely, Marcus. Nia read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. She wasn't alone in this. Someone else understood the complicated weight of being recognized for simple human decency. That evening, Malik called. I saw the news stories, he said without preamble. Are you okay? I am surviving. That's not what I asked. Nia sat down on her apartment couch, suddenly exhausted. I don't know if I'm okay. I thought helping someone would be simple, but it's turned into this huge, complicated thing that I don't know how to navigate. Want my advice? Malik asked. Always. Stop worrying about what it means for everyone else. Focus on what it means for you. You're getting training that will change your life. You're being recognized for qualities you've always had. The rest is just noise. His voice was firm. Mom always said the right thing is rarely the easy thing. You did the right thing. Now you deal with the consequences, easy or not. After they hung up, Nia sat in the quiet of her apartment and let his words settle over her. He was right. She couldn't control what other people thought or how they interpreted her actions. She could only control whether she moved forward or let fear and doubt hold her back. Saturday morning, Nia arrived at work to find Tyler waiting by her register with a small group of coworkers. Carmen, Mrs. Delgado, and 3 other employees she'd worked with for years. We wanted you to know we've got your back, Tyler said simply. Whatever comes next, you're not facing it alone. Mrs. Delgado stepped forward. I've been supervising this store for 15 years. I've seen hundreds of employees come and go. You're one of the best people I've ever worked with, and that has nothing to do with viral posts or corporate politics. It's just who you are. Nia felt tears well up again, but this time they were different. Not from stress or sadness, but from gratitude. She wasn't alone. Even in the middle of corporate warfare and public scrutiny, people who actually knew her stood beside her. Thank you, she managed to say. All of you. I don't know how to express how much this means. Then don't, Carmen said practically. Just keep being you. That's all any of us need. The rest of Saturday passed more smoothly than the previous week. The company statement had taken some heat off Nia personally, and customers who came through her line were mostly supportive. A few still gave her suspicious looks, but she was learning to let that go. Sunday brought the final piece of the puzzle. Charles called her after her shift, his voice carrying both frustration and determination. Harrison has resigned from the board effective immediately, he said without preamble. The ethics investigation found evidence that he'd planned the leak as part of a broader effort to undermine my leadership. He's done. Does that mean the program is safe? Nia asked. The program is safe. The People First policies are safe. And you, Nia Brooks, are officially starting your management training tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. His tone lightened slightly. No more obstacles. No more corporate politics. Just you, working toward becoming the leader I know you can be. After hanging up, Nia sat in her car and let herself feel it. Relief, exhaustion, fear, hope. All of it mixed together into something she couldn't quite name, but knew marked a turning point. She'd survived the betrayal. She'd weathered the public scrutiny. She'd proven, to Charles and to herself, that her character wasn't just a performance. It was real, it was tested, and it was strong enough to carry her forward into whatever came next. Monday morning would bring new challenges. But for the first time in months, Nia felt ready to face them. Monday morning arrived with Nia standing outside the Henderson's Market Corporate Training Center, a modern building she'd driven past countless times without ever imagining she'd walk through its doors. She wore her best interview outfit, a simple navy dress she'd bought on clearance 3 years ago, and carried a notebook Tyler had given her as a good luck gift. The training room held 3 other people, 2 women and 1 man, all looking as nervous as Nia felt. They introduced themselves during the coffee break. Sandra, a cashier from the downtown location who'd helped an elderly customer find affordable medication. Marcus, a stock clerk who'd stayed late to help a single father whose car had broken down in the parking lot. And Jessica, a deli worker who'd organized a food drive when she noticed regular customers struggling. Charles had found kindness in the most unexpected places, and now he was investing in it. The training itself was intense. Business fundamentals, leadership psychology, conflict resolution, financial management. Real courses taught by actual professors, not corporate cheerleading sessions. Nia's brain hurt by the end of the first day, but it was a good hurt, the kind that came from genuine learning. She continued her cashier shifts 3 days a week while attending training the other 4. The schedule was exhausting, but the small pay increase that came with the program helped immediately. She paid her overdue electric bill the first week, started saving for her car repair the second. By the 3rd week, she could actually buy fresh vegetables instead of just rice and beans. The transformation wasn't overnight. It was gradual, earned through effort and discipline. Tyler noticed a change in her during their overlapping shifts. You seem lighter, he said one afternoon while restocking near her register. I feel lighter, Nia admitted. For the first time in years, I'm not drowning. I'm actually moving forward. But accepting opportunity didn't mean abandoning who she was. Nia kept her cashier shifts specifically to stay grounded, to remember the daily struggles of frontline work. She'd seen too many managers forget what it felt like to stand for 8 hours or deal with difficult customers. She wouldn't make that mistake. Mrs. Delgado's story was unfolding differently, but equally meaningful. 6 weeks into the restructuring, Charles promoted her to regional supervisor overseeing 5 store locations. It was recognition she'd deserved for years, but had been denied by previous management focused only on numbers rather than leadership quality. I never thought this would happen, Mrs. Delgado confided to Nia during a training session where she'd been invited to speak about her management philosophy. I'd accepted that I'd reached my ceiling. That good work would be noticed, but not rewarded. Charles proved me wrong. Tyler's transformation was quieter, but no less significant. Inspired by watching Nia's journey, he enrolled in community college business courses and applied for a supervisor trainee position. His natural kindness and work ethic caught attention he'd never sought, and suddenly doors were opening for him too. You started something, he told Nia one evening as they locked up the store together. People are realizing that being good at your job and being a good person aren't mutually exclusive. The community impact rippled outward in unexpected ways. Customers who'd witnessed Nia's original act of kindness started their own small gestures. A regular began paying for the person behind her in line once a month. A local business owner set up a fund to help Henderson's employees facing financial emergencies. The culture around the store was slowly, tangibly changing. Malik's update came during week 8 of training. The stipend situation resolved, he told Nia over dinner at her apartment, which now had actual furniture instead of just the bare minimum. Starts next month, and I got a scholarship application approved. Between that and the research position, I can actually help with expenses next semester. You focus on school, Nia replied, but her heart felt full. The constant terror of not having enough was finally easing. Charles visited the training center during week 10 to observe the participants' progress. He pulled Nia aside afterward, genuine pride in his expression. You're excelling, he said simply. The instructors tell me you're asking the best questions, pushing yourself harder than anyone else. I'm not surprised, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful too, Nia replied honestly. This opportunity changed my life. But I need to tell you something. What's that? I'm never going to forget what it felt like to struggle. Even when I'm promoted, even when I'm making more money, I'm going to remember what it's like to choose between bills. To sacrifice for people you love. To feel invisible. She met his eyes steadily. That's going to make me a better leader than someone who never lived it. Charles smiled. It was the warmest expression she'd seen from him. Elizabeth would have liked you very much. She believed the same thing. The training program concluded after 6 months with a formal evaluation. All 4 participants passed, but Nia scored highest in leadership assessment and practical application. The promotion to assistant supervisor came with a formal ceremony that felt both wonderful and slightly embarrassing. Standing at the front of the Henderson's market conference room, accepting her new title from Charles while her coworkers applauded, Nia thought about how far she'd come. From a struggling cashier, sacrificing $18 she couldn't afford, to a leader being trusted with actual responsibility. The journey hadn't been a fairy tale. There had been no magic moment where everything suddenly became perfect. Just steady, difficult work that gradually built something better. 3 months into her role as assistant supervisor, Nia stood in the store reviewing inventory reports when she noticed a familiar pattern. A cashier named David had been consistently late with his paperwork, missing shifts, looking exhausted. She remembered being in that position herself, drowning but too proud to ask for help. She called him into the office. Everything okay? She asked gently. David's resistance crumbled immediately. My mom got sick. Medical bills are crushing us. I've been working a second job at night, and I'm barely keeping up. Nia listened, then did what Charles had done for her. She didn't hand him money. She gave him resources, information about employee assistance programs she'd helped develop, flexible scheduling options, a connection to a financial counselor who worked with the company. You don't have to drown alone, she told him. That's what I learned. Asking for help isn't weakness. It's wisdom. A week later, David thanked her with tears in his eyes. The assistance program had covered his mother's medication costs. The flexible schedule let him manage both jobs without burning out. He was surviving because someone noticed and cared. That was Nia's leadership style. Attention, compassion, but also structure and accountability. She demanded excellence from her team while making sure they had the support to achieve it. Mrs. Delgado visited the store one afternoon, observing Nia's work with obvious pride. You're a natural, the regional supervisor said. The employees respect you because you've walked in their shoes. That's invaluable. Tyler's journey had advanced too. He'd completed his community college courses and was now training for an assistant manager position at another location. They'd remained close friends, supporting each other's growth. Remember when you were just a nice cashier who helped everyone? Tyler joked during a lunch break they'd scheduled to catch up. I'm still that person, Nia replied, just with better health insurance. The store culture transformation was measurable now. Employee turnover had dropped 40%. Customer satisfaction scores were the highest in the region. And most telling, 3 other employees had been nominated for leadership development based on demonstrated character, not just performance metrics. Charles's philosophy was working. Slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. Malik's graduation came on a bright Saturday in May. Nia sat in the university auditorium, watching her brother walk across the stage to receive his degree, and allowed herself to cry. Their mother wasn't there to see it, but they'd honored her wishes. They made it through. Afterward, Malik hugged her tight. We did it, sis. You did it. We both did it, Nia corrected. I just kept the lights on. You did the actual work. You did more than keep the lights on. Her brother's voice was serious. You show me what it looks like to face impossible odds and refuse to give up. That's worth more than any degree. That summer brought an unexpected moment that closed a circle Nia hadn't realized was open. She was working her weekly cashier shift, maintaining connection to frontline work, when a customer approached with a small bag of groceries. The total came to $19.73. The customer, a young woman who looked exhausted and overwhelmed, reached for her wallet and her face crumbled. I'm so sorry, she said, tears starting. I thought I had enough, but I'm about $2 short. Can I remove the bread? Nia looked at the groceries. Budget items. Necessities. She saw herself from 2 years ago reflected in this stranger's desperation. But before Nia could respond, the customer behind the young woman stepped forward. I'll cover the difference, an older gentleman said quietly. Pay it forward when you can. The young woman thanked him through tears. And as Nia processed the transaction, she noticed something remarkable. 3 other customers in line were smiling, nodding approval. The culture of kindness had spread beyond just one act. It had become something larger. After the customer left, the gentleman who'd helped caught Nia's eye. I was here that day, he said, when you paid for that man's groceries. It made me think about how I move through the world. So I try to help when I can now. Small things, but they add up. Nia felt emotions swell in her chest. This was the impact Charles had talked about. Not just her own transformation, but ripples extending outward to touch people she'd never know. That evening, Charles called her. I wanted to give you an update. We're expanding the leadership development program to all our retail holdings. 15 new participants starting next quarter, selected using the same criteria we used for you. Character observed when people think no one important is watching. That's wonderful, Nia said, genuinely moved. It's happening because you proved it works. Because you showed that investing in good people creates returns that can't be measured just in profit margins. He paused. Elizabeth would be proud. I'm proud. 6 months later, Nia received another promotion. Full supervisor of the Henderson's Market location where everything had started. The same store where she'd struggled as a cashier now operated under her leadership. Her first act as supervisor was creating an emergency fund for employees facing unexpected financial crises. Small amounts, administered discreetly, designed to help people the way she wished someone had helped her. The second act was instituting what she called dignity meetings. Monthly check-ins where any employee could request time with her privately to discuss struggles, ideas, or concerns. Not performance reviews. Just human conversations that acknowledged everyone's humanity. Tyler visited for the ribbon-cutting ceremony when the store received an award for employee satisfaction and community impact. Look at you, he said, gesturing at her office. Supervisor Brooks. Sounds pretty good. It feels pretty good, Nia admitted. But it's also terrifying. I'm responsible for all these people now. You've always been responsible for people, Tyler replied. Your brother. Your co-workers. That random stranger whose groceries you paid for. Now you just have an official title and the resources to actually help. On the anniversary of the day she'd paid for Charles's groceries, Nia visited her mother's grave. She stood there in the late afternoon sun and told her mother everything. About the struggles and the breakthrough. About Malik's graduation and her promotion. About proving that kindness wasn't naive, just rare. I kept my promise, she said quietly. Malik graduated. We made it through. And somehow, we ended up okay. Better than okay. A week later, another customer forgot their wallet at Nia's store. But this time, before any employee could react, 4 customers simultaneously offered to help. The culture had shifted so fundamentally that kindness was now the default, not the exception. Nia watched it happen from her supervisor's office and smiled. This was the lasting impact Charles had sought. Not just helping one person, but changing how an entire community thought about caring for each other. That night, alone in her comfortable apartment, with furniture she'd bought herself and groceries she hadn't had to sacrifice for, Nia reflected on her journey. Kindness hadn't made her rich overnight. It hadn't solved all her problems with a magic wave. But it had made her influential, respected, secure, and most importantly, it had changed more than just one life. It had created ripples that touched people she'd never meet, in ways she'd never fully know. Charles was right. Character was what you did when you thought no one important was watching. But the truth Nia had learned was simpler and more profound. Everyone is important. Every act of kindness matters. And sometimes The moment you think no one's watching is exactly when someone who can change your life is paying the closest attention. Not because kindness should be transactional, but because genuine compassion, the kind that costs you something, is rare enough to be precious. And when you find it, you invest in it. You nurture it. You build something better around it. That was Elizabeth's wisdom. That was Charles's mission. And now it was Nia's legacy too. If someone tested your character when you thought nobody important was watching, what would they discover about who you really are? If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary choices.